In today's episode of Beyond the Summit, you're going to hear from Gillian Wintermute. Gillian ingested a rare parasite back when she was just 9 years old, and that led to her having Crohn's disease for the rest of her life. You're going to hear about her amazing battle through her entire teenage years and now what she has done to overcome her challenges and go beyond the summit. Today, Gillian inspires people, she motivates people, and she helps people reach their dreams. Enjoy today's episode, and if you like it, share it with other people who you feel need to be inspired by Gillian's message. Also, make sure you follow the show so that you can hear more inspirational stories just like Gillian. Thanks and enjoy. Welcome to Beyond the Summit, where we journey into the heart of human potential. I am your host, David Wolf. Here we will engage with extraordinary minds, unlock secrets of success, and discover what fuels happiness in our extraordinary guests. Prepare to be inspired, to grow, and to see beyond your own summit. Oh man, where do we want to start? I just had picked up the girls. I had a drop off. I had to go to the high school. I had to drop off my older daughter for driving school. She's starting
Oh.
her in-car.
Uh-huh.
And then when I dropped her off, the other one jumped in and came home from cross country. And then I got to go, as soon as we're done, I got to go back and go pick up the other one from driving. And then she's got to get back out there at 3 o'clock. This is just a great time of my life. I can't. I'm so excited that school is back in session tomorrow. But
Yeah.
my daughter said, "Can we stop for breakfast?" Of course, that means Starbucks. Crazy expensive. And I got the small cup of, I don't even know what I got. And just whatever looked good.
Yeah.
And I called that small. And my daughter's like, "It's called, what is it? Is it Vente is the small?"
I don't
I
even
don't,
know. I always say
I don't,
small and then they correct me.
yeah. Vente, Grande, and I don't remember the other one. And it's like the small one, you take like 3 sips out of it and you're done. I'm like, that was the biggest waste of $6.
Yeah.
Three sips. I mean, if it's gonna do that, it's better to have some alcohol content to it, you know? So, all right. So, um, I've already told this to Jillian that about, I don't know, 6, 7 weeks ago. I don't watch much YouTube videos anymore.
Okay.
Um, Especially when it's paramotoring. It feels like even in the paramotoring community, it seems like so many less people are watching it than they did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And Jillian is a lead instructor at Aviator Paramotor, and, 3, 4 years ago, Aviator puts out a video, it's 10,000 people plus watching that video. Now it's 3 to 4,000. It's just gone down so much. But for some crazy reason, I'm subscribed to Aviator. uh, Aviator Show is the name of the YouTube channel, and for some reason, I looked down and I woke up and I looked down and I see this video, I'm like, I'll click on it." And it's the story of Jillian. And it really moved me and it really inspired me. And I actually watched it twice because you have such an incredible background story. Maybe you don't think it's incredible
Please.
because you had to live through it.
No.
So I see this video, I'm inspired, I'm moved by it, I'm excited by it. And it got me back to thinking, like, my gosh, this is someone's story that should be told, because even though she went through hell, it's going to inspire somebody else that's going through it, has gone through it, or will one day go through it.
Okay.
And there's something that you said in the video. You said, "No one else knows what you are going through." And it really made me think about that because last week's episode was Todd
Mhm.
Scandrett. And he talked about being in the military and he talked about what he went through, which, if you haven't heard it yet, go back and listen to it because it's probably one of the best podcasts I'll ever do. And he
Mhm.
talked about the loss of his wife. And his words were similar to yours. His words were, "Nobody else fully appreciates what you're going through. And that's the hard part because no one else is there with you." So
Yeah.
um, I'm going to let you talk about your story. First thing I wanted to ask you, okay? And I guess I'm kind of lingering around. What happened to Jillian? I'm building up the suspense, but you'll go ahead and talk about that in a second. 0 through 9 years old. You're
Okay.
a complete normal child, normal in the world of being that you're just like everybody else. You're
Yeah.
going outside, you're playing, you're getting your ice cream, right?
Yep.
And what
I
happens at age 9?
So when I was 9, I started getting like super bad stomach aches all of a sudden, like constantly throughout the day. Of course, my mom, took me to the doctor, and through some trial and error with the doctors, I was eventually sent to the hospital just on high concern for my blood work. And they discovered that I had ingested a rare parasite from some sort of dirty water. Um, and then while I was in the hospital for that parasite, they kind of noticed through all the tests that I had gotten done that there were like kind of warning signs of an underlying disease. Um, Initially, they knew it was an inflammatory bowel disease, and then a couple months later, it was officially diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 9.
So, I guess you were living in New Jersey at this point, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so word of caution to everybody, don't drink the water in New Jersey.
We have like speculations as to like what I drank because I was constantly either in the river or a pond. But there were also some like issues going on with the water system in my school. And that's what my dad really thinks it was. He thinks that, there was something with the water because for like a year or two after I was diagnosed, we were not allowed to drink the water at my school, like from the water fountains or anything. Um, so he thinks it's from my school. My mom thinks it was from some river that I was swimming in. But we don't know for sure.
Okay. Can you talk about what Crohn's disease really is?
Yeah,
Because
so
I have an
Crohn's.
idea, but I'm not completely certain, so I'd rather you give a good definition of what that is.
Mhm. So it's an autoimmune disease, like kind of categorized under inflammatory bowel disease. Um, and basically it's just rooted around your intestines, and it, it's a really tricky disease because I get these they're called flares, where my intestines basically just flare up and get enlarged. Sometimes to the point where I can't like process any food or um, absorb any nutrients or anything like that. So it can be triggered by a lot of things, whether it be food you're eating or just in general, the disease is just angered by something. Sometimes it's just random. But if you don't have the right treatment for it, it it acts up very often and you get a lot of flares. But essentially with an autoimmune disease, there it's more than just, attacking my gastrointestinal system. It's also attacking, like I have chronic fatigue and I've had arthritis and psoriasis, and I used to get pneumonia and bronchitis like every single year. Um, so there's a lot, even though it's just Crohn's disease, it's like there's a whole other string of things that come along with it.
Y You said this caused arthritis as well?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with arthritis, I think when I was 15 or 16 years
Oh
old.
gosh.
Yeah,
This is something no 15, 16-year-old should be having at this age,
I
and this
know.
is all
Yeah.
caused because of this parasite.
Mhm.
Do you still have effects of arthritis? Do you still
I
have the
do.
let me say that again. Do you still have the arthritis?
I do, yeah. So, it's being pretty well maintained right now through the treatment that I'm on for Crohn's disease. Um, and I get that treatment once a month. And usually towards the end of that month, or if I'm like a little bit late for my medication because it gets delivered to me, um, I'll start to, get a little bit of arthritis flare up in my knees and my ankles, mostly.
Is this something that you're gonna have to have the rest of your life, these treatments?
Most likely, yeah. I'll definitely have Crohn's because there's no cure for that. Um, Potentially down the line, it is such a like temperamental disease that's different for every person that has it. So finding a cure for it is very hard to do. But there's lots of treatments for it, and I'm actually on like my third kind of test run of treatments, because the first 2 I was on failed initially. Um, so I'm on, like, the 3rd medication that's, like, an overall treatment for Crohn's. Um, but it's kind of understood that, like, after a while, your body kind of gets used to that treatment and kind of it starts losing its effect, and you'll have to move on to a new treatment. So I think they're constantly coming up with new treatments for Crohn's, and hopefully down the line, if something were to happen with my treatment, I could just move on to another one that continues to work for me and keeps all of my other side effects like arthritis and psoriasis from like popping up again.
Right. So
Yeah.
I know in this video that I watched, which is amazing, and I invite everybody to go back and watch it, and I'll have a link in the description as well. But you talked about having sickness and fatigue. Do you still have that now? Is that throughout the whole month, or is that still close to the end? So you still do have it.
I definitely still experience chronic fatigue, but again, it's more towards the end of the month, when I'm getting closer to when I need my treatment. Yeah.
On the fifth episode of Beyond the Summit, we heard from Tim Gaskins,
Mhm.
and Tim was talking. I asked Tim, and I said, you know, you were told you'd have 2 years left to live with your cancer. You're now 7 years in. And I said, what advice do you have for someone that's just finding out they have cancer? And his words were, don't give up hope. There is always new technology and new research that's coming out
Mhm.
to cure some of these things. And Jillian, for you, do you keep that in your mindset to keep a positive attitude that there's going to be something else that's coming out? They're still working on it.
I really try to. I feel like in the past, I what didn't have as hopeful of an outlook. Um, I was just kind of scared. Well, for the long time, I just couldn't get my disease under control. So I was just scared that that's how it was going to be for the rest of my life. And then once I did have better control of it and got on a great treatment that works for me, um, I'm I was pretty terrified that, like, somewhere down the road, I would just be back in that same position of being constantly sick. I would say nowadays, I am, like, much more hopeful and, continue to have a positive outlook and know that, down the line, if my treatment starts to not work as well, I'll just do what I can to, keep myself in a healthy position, whether it be, with my, um, diet and all that, and then just really continuing to look for treatments that work for me.
I want to go back and get in the mindset of a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. Okay. And also, if you can help try to put us in the mindset of a parent of a 9-year-old and 11-year-old. Okay. So, what is this 9-year-old? This 9-year-old's got stomach aches. Mommy's saying, oh, baby, it's just your tummy, but we'll go check it out. And then we find out it's something significantly bigger than just a tummy ache. All right. And 2 years later, you're having your first surgery. Uh, uh, I think as a parent, for me, I'm petrified for my child, and I would give my life just to make them more comfortable.
Yeah.
Where are you in your set at 9 or 11? And now, looking back at your age, you're probably thinking, "Okay, this was a bigger deal than maybe what I envisioned it was, or maybe not." Take
Mhm.
us back to what you were thinking back then and what your folks were thinking at those ages.
Yeah. So when I was 9 and I first started getting stomach aches, I was very much the kid that, like, if I was sick, I would either try to, like, push it down, like, I wanted to not be sick so bad that I would just kinda push through it and continue to try and live a normal life. So I would go to school and get, like, these debilitating stomach aches and then still, like, go to class, not really go to the nurse. Um, and then when we went to the doctor for the first time, I was literally told to just take Tums every time I ate. So, that's my mom took the advice of the doctor, and we went and bought a bottle of Tums, and I tried just eating those every time I ate and had really no effect. So we decided to go back to the doctor and see someone new, and after hearing my symptoms, she immediately wanted to do blood work, and that was, like, my first time really experiencing anything like that in, like, the medical field because I had been a perfectly healthy child. So getting blood work done was, like, very scary to me. Um, Thankfully, I had an amazing doctor, and, she did and I was fine. And as soon as we got the results back, I remember it was, like, really late at night, um, and my mom got the phone call, and the doctor told her, "You need to take her to the hospital right now, I think she has cancer." Which I immediately saw the panic on my mom's face, of course. She was freaked out. Um, for me, I was more so just in this state of I'm sick and in pain and I just wanna get it over with, that I wasn't necessarily super freaked out. I was just kind of in this state of, fatigue. Um, so I would say I didn't think it was as big a deal as it was when I was that age for sure. Like, looking back on it now, like, if I were to have a 9-year-old kid that I was just told could potentially have cancer, like, that'd be a huge deal. Um, but for me, I was just kinda like, let's just get to the hospital and, figure it out." Um, we ended up going so we lived in New Jersey, and we ended up going to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, so that's like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive for us. So I remember I was just sleeping in the car, not really aware of, like, what my parents were thinking. I'm sure they were just freaked out that entire car ride. Um, and then once we got to the hospital, that's when things kinda settled in for me. I had to get, my first IV and be put through all these tests, and there were constantly, like, a swarm of doctors and nurses in my room. Um, so I think for me, it was more just, like, anxiety inducing. Um, I think that's probably where I started to get a ton of my anxiety from, is just all these, like, older people just constantly, like, poking and prodding and talking about me while I'm in the room with them, not really understanding what's happening or what's going on. Um, so that hospital visit, again, I don't remember thinking it was that huge of a deal. I just kind of got through it. They were able to remove the parasite from me, um, and that was all good. But then, there were the warning signs of potential Crohn's disease, which, the doctors weren't really including me in that conversation. They were more so talking to my parents about that. Um, so I'm sure my parents were just freaked out, not understanding really what even Crohn's disease was, and thinking that their kid just had a parasite that needed to get removed, and then, oh no, now there's this underlying potential autoimmune disease that she could have. Um, so after I was let out of the hospital, again, I just tried to continue on living a normal life, like acting like I wasn't that sick when I was. And I think with my parents, they were just trying to, get through each doctor visit and, make sure I was staying healthy and that we were figuring out what was actually going on. I'm sure that was causing them a ton of anxiety and stress, but they also both have full-time jobs and 2 other kids. So there was definitely a lot going on. Um, and then down the road when I was 11, um, I was basically just I was having a flare up every other week. So I was being constantly hospitalized. And then the doctors were eventually like, okay, we just need to keep her admitted and we're going to have to do this surgery where we just remove that part of the intestine that keeps flaring up. So for me, that was, again, not, I don't remember being like super scared or stressed. I think I was just so fatigued and like fed up from the pain that I was like, okay, let's just have this surgery, get it over with, remove that part of me, and so I can continue on with life. Um, I remember for sure my parents were definitely very scared. Um, and yeah, just being in the hospital room before the surgery, they were super freaked out. They would walk out with me as I was being, wheeled into the surgery room. They walked as far as they could with me. Um, and I could just kind of see the terror on their faces as I was being wheeled away from them. Um, so It's kinda hard because you grow up kind of looking back on those moments, and kind of makes you feel sort of like a burden in a way because you were so sick, even though you had, like, no control over it or the situation at all, it's like you put your parents through all that stress and all that worry and anxiety, and it just like, for me, I felt the weight of that a lot, and it made me feel not only bad about being sick, but then bad about what how it was affecting my family and their lives as well.
That's a horrible burden to put on your shoulders. As a parent, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my children.
I
Nothing.
know,
There's no burden that great when it comes to health. There's other things they do that's a burden, but don't tell them I said that. Uh, in this case here, you can't. Do you still feel that way now, or was it just back then that you were this burden?
I definitely feel it less now. I did feel it up to the point of, like, when I was 20, I think that was my last surgery was when I was 20. And that one I really felt like a burden. Um, but since then I've done, like, a ton of work with, like, my mental health, um, and that's helped me kinda step out of that mindset and kinda take that weight off my shoulders and realize that, like, yes, my parents would do literally anything for me. They were constantly traveling all the way to Philadelphia, even with their full-time jobs, to be in the hospital with me every single night. Like, it's what they wanted to do, and I know that I shouldn't have felt like a burden, but I couldn't help but feel like I was just interrupting everyone's lives, and I just wanted to pretend like I wasn't going through as much as I was going through so that I could continue living like what a normal childhood would be.
Yeah. No, I hope I pray that you don't feel that burden because
Yeah.
there's no such thing as that for a parent. There really, really
Mhm.
isn't. Okay. It's
Really.
just our responsibility. It's just look, children are a gift from God.
Yeah.
And every it's just a part of, "Hey, this is a responsibility that was placed on me, and it's gonna make me stronger moving forward." That's, as a
Mhm.
parent, how I would feel, and that's okay. It's not a
Yeah.
burden, it's just this is just like it's a burden to b say, "Hey, take me to Starbucks." Okay, this is not a burden, taking care
Yeah.
of my child,
Yeah.
alright? So I hope you don't feel that way, and it's sad that you did, it's not your fault, it's human
Yeah.
nature, I would understand why you
Yeah.
would feel that way, and as people listen to this podcast, they may relate to that saying, "Yeah, I went through the same thing as Jillian did, and that's how I felt too." But no, it's not. You're not a
Mhm.
burden. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, health got worse as you went through 17, right? Was it just
Yes.
more flare ups or was there more to it?
Um, so when I was on, like, my 2nd treatment for Crohn's, so I was on an initial treatment and I had allergic reaction to it, so I had to switch to another one, and it was going well, but my doctors decided to take me off another medication that I was on, and in doing that, I developed the arthritis and psoriasis because that medication was helping in combination with my main treatment to keep things like arthritis and psoriasis from popping up. So they took me off that medication, and then I just got super sick with arthritis and psoriasis. So they decided to take me off of that second treatment that I was on completely. Um, and in doing that, I was left on no treatment because they were still trying to figure out what to do next. And in that time between getting off that second treatment and being put on a new one, I just deteriorated very quickly and very bad to the point where when they finally put me on this new treatment, it was all attacking this one very diseased spot in my intestines and leaving the rest of my body to just kind of feel the effects of an autoimmune disease. So I had, arthritis, psoriasis, chronic fatigue. I could barely eat anything. Um, so over the span of, I want to say like 6 months, I was constantly sick. I was put on steroids kind of as like a band-aid, um, which I is probably my least favorite thing in the whole span of my disease is being put on steroids because they just make you feel awful. Um, so eventually they took me off. the steroids, and then um, kind of had to start dealing with what was really happening at hand. So I got an ostomy, which I don't know if you know what that is. Um, it's basically where they take a part of your intestine and bring it to the surface of your stomach, and then you have to wear a bag. So I got that in like the fall of when I was 17. And they thought that that would kind of help things, but it still wasn't. So then in January of 2018, I was hospitalized for like a good 2.5 month span. And that's when I had that um, major surgery when I was 17 to remove a large part of my intestines. And then after that, that's when I really started to kind of see improvement in my health. That treatment that I was on started to treat my whole body rather than just that one section. And then also having that ostomy gave my intestines some relief and some time to heal and recover from everything that they just went through.
That's great. So now it's just a matter of getting a treatment once a month. It's just
Yes.
down to that.
Yep.
It's great.
Okay.
From age 11 through 18, what percentage of the time in that 7 years do you think you spent laying in a bed in the hospital?
I would say like throughout a school year, I would probably be hospitalized for at least 4 or 5 weeks. Um, so I would miss like 4 to 5 weeks of school per year, just through sporadic hospitalizations.
Yeah, I think about what my 4 children at these ages now, so the youngest that I have is 13 right now, oldest is 20. And I think about the years that this is all really affecting you, and these are developmental ages, okay? There's so much going on socially, you're developing, scholastically, you're developing, and it's time that you missed, and, it's a couple questions here. 1, do you feel like you missed out on a lot because of all this? 2, how did kids at school treat you? Did you feel like you were being treated differently from everybody else?
Mm. Um, I definitely feel like I missed out on a lot. I would say I tried my hardest to not let it overshine my life. I tried to just act like nothing was going on, which probably wasn't the best, but anytime I wasn't in the hospital or homesick, I would just go to school and act like I don't have an autoimmune disease. And I would push myself probably too hard. I still tried to do like all honors classes in high school, and I would still try to play sports even though some at some point I would just not have the energy or the stamina to keep up with those sports. Um so it definitely took me away from a lot. I think that I could have pursued a lot more academically or even in the sports field if hadn't had Crohn's. Um, and I definitely it didn't affect my friendships too much because again, I just never really talked about it with my friends. And if I was ever hospitalized, if I wasn't talking about it, no one really wanted to ask me about it. It was kind of like one of those things where like people don't know what's going on and they don't want to ask about it because it's uncomfortable and weird. So no one really talked to me about it, so I never didn't feel like I was being treated differently necessarily, because I never let it be known that anything was really going on. Of course, like it was probably weird for the kids around me that I would just disappear for weeks, and then come back to school and act like nothing happened. But again, no one would bring it up to me. And I always had like amazing teachers that would just, help me get caught up on work and work with me privately to keep me up with the curriculum and in line with all my peers. So I did feel like I missed out on a lot, but I did still try to like live just like how all my other peers were as hard as I could.
I know you had mentioned before that you felt like this isolated you from friends and peers, but it
Hmm.
sounds like they were still warming and inviting into you. How did it isolate you?
It isolated me in the sense that I did have like this whole other part of my life that I wasn't sharing with anyone. and no one was asking me about. So I was experiencing all of these traumatic, painful events and then just going back to school and acting like nothing was happening. And I would be in class, like suffering from a great deal of pain and just trying to pretend like I wasn't in any pain at all. So it was isolating in the sense that no one really knew what I was going through, but also I wasn't really sharing with anyone what I was going through. So I just felt like the people that I had shared it with previously, like I had told, of course, my best friends and all that, but they can't understand because they're not going through it. So I felt like when I told people about it and they didn't understand, that felt even more isolating to me because they wouldn't, you know, ask how I was doing or, be able to sympathize with me. So I just felt more alone in that sense. So then I just kind of stopped telling anyone at all.
Wow. Yeah, it's like we said right at the beginning, no one else knows what I'm going through. They
Mhm.
can't understand it. How could they understand it? And for you to say that you had severe anxiety, severe depression, it, how could anybody say that's anything but normal for your situation? I mean, I couldn't imagine having been dealt this hand and not having severe anxiety and depression. So good for you for living through it. You know, I'm sure there's times that other people might have thought, I don't want to live through this anymore. This is too much for me. Take this
Mhm.
burden off of me, whatever that means. But
Yeah.
you made it through, and that's phenomenal. Okay. I guess the people that really understood it the best were your family, your
Mhm.
mom, your dad, your siblings. What type of support did you get from them?
My parents were like they went above and beyond to constantly be with me in the hospital and um do what they could to make sure, I was the best that I could be. If I was homesick, they would, arrange for grandparents to come over while they were at work, or they would just take countless days off to, do the 2-hour drive into Philadelphia just for like a half-hour appointment with my doctor and then drive all the way home. Um, and at points when I was really sick, my mom was really good at coming up with fun little crafts and games in the hospital to try to keep my spirits up. And my dad would always bring board games to the hospital and, again, just try to keep me in good spirits as best they could. My siblings, I know it was, um, hard on them as well to, have their sibling constantly being hospitalized, but they also are, living their own lives and trying to get through their own, struggles and going to school and sports and all that and having, my parents constantly needing to go spend every night in the hospital with me. Um, but even so, they were just still as supportive, always doing what they could to keep me in good spirits and be there when I needed them. So I would say my family, like definitely my number one blessing in life is my family. They're just so amazing, and I'm really grateful for them.
It's awesome.
Mhm.
I want to ask you this, and this may be the most difficult question I can ask you, and this may be the most difficult answer you can give. Okay.
Mhm.
Before I ask this, I want to preface this with this. There are times when my children are going through tough times. And, looking from a person that's been there and done that at my age, I'll tell my children, this is temporary. This is a small little percentage in years of your big picture age. So this too will pass. And it's,
Mhm.
I get it from a young person's point of view, it's their whole life. And for me, it's just a fragment of life. And so it
Mhm.
seems so much bigger to them than it does to me. Okay. You have talked about missed opportunities. And I think about what my kids have gone through the ages of 11 through 18 dances, sports, going to sporting events, hanging out with friends, things like that. What are some of the missed opportunities that you had that you wish you would have had?
Um, I would say I was so So when I was little, like before I was really sick, I played a different sport every season. So I played soccer, basketball, softball, tennis, um, and I just loved running around outside, um, and just kind of being in that world of, you're just focused on that sport and that's all you have to focus on. So when I started to get more sick and I lost that stamina and energy, it really kind of broke my heart in a sense that I wasn't able to keep up with my peers and perform as well as I normally could. So I tried to play softball my freshman year of high school. And even in that, even though like everyone made the freshman team, I still felt like I was just there because everyone made it. Um, I did feel like I had good skills, but I just didn't have the stamina and the energy to be constantly playing. So I do feel like I could have really enjoyed pursuing a sport more full time in high school, and maybe beyond that. And then also, uh, my senior year of high school specifically, I only went to my first day of school, and then after that, I was so sick that I didn't go back. And I had signed up for AP classes and honors classes, um, that I feel like really could have benefited me in terms of school after high school. Um, I managed to get like all of my credits done in the 3 months of the end of the school year. I did everything online and just got through with it so that I could graduate on time. And then I say the biggest missed opportunity was what happens after high school. So, like, going to college, I had not even thought about what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go because I was so focused on, like, getting through each day just to get through it because I was in so much pain and so sick. I was just like, I can't even focus on my future because I'm, like, kind of in survival mode, just focusing on each day individually. So I had no idea what I wanted to do, where I might wanna go to school. I didn't even have time to go visit colleges or do any of that. So, once I graduated high school, all my peers were going off to college, and so I just kind of put myself into community college so that I was kinda doing what everyone else was doing, which I don't regret now because I do feel like community college was the right move for me to still be, like, at home and recovering from everything that I just went through. But I do feel like I kind of missed out on the opportunity of going to a 4-year school and kind of experiencing what all everyone my own age was experiencing. Um, Once I graduated community college, I still at that point was dealing with all of that anxiety and depression that I talked about because previously I had just been ignoring it and pretending like, I was just more so focusing on my disease. And then once I was healthy, that's when I started dealing with the anxiety and depression that was at hand. So once I graduated community college, I was still like, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. So then taking that gap year off is what kind of led me down the route to paramotors and then kind of led me on a whole different direction in life. So even though I did have missed opportunities, um, I'm not mad with the outcome. I feel like I love my life and I've found who I am. Um, so even with the path that I was led down, I feel like I mean, I can't even imagine where I would be in another scenario, but where I am now, I'm very happy with. So,
You just said who I am,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Who are you?
Um,
How about that for a
see,
question? That's a heck
that's
of a question. Who are you?
hard
How do you
question.
define yourself?
I would say that if I'm comparing myself to who I was when I was depressed and anxious, and I was just constantly thinking
No,
that,
that's not my question. I'm gonna cut you off. Let me
okay,
rephrase my question. If someone else said, "Who is Gillian Wintermute?" How would they define you? Who would they say you are?
That is a hard question, like, in speaking about, like, what, like, my personality is like, or
Let me answer this question for you from my point of
okay.
view,
Okay.
okay? Prior to seeing this video, which is your video was really responsible for this whole podcast, not just this episode, but me being
Mhm,
inspired by you, by your
mhm.
story to share your story and other people's story in similar situations or in just their own experiences and their success stories. Because I believe you are a success story, which is why you're sitting here in front of me. Okay.
Mhm.
Had I never seen that, I would never know any of this about you, which
Yeah.
means your identity to me has nothing to do with Crohn's disease.
Mhm,
It has nothing to do with anything you went through from age 9 and beyond.
mhm.
To me, Gillian is a strong woman. She is a lead trainer at Paramotor. She inspires other people. She lives life because I understand you like to travel as well.
Yes.
And like other crazy people, you like to live out of the back of a van. So
Mhm.
there's that too. Your identity to me has nothing to do with your health issues.
Mhm.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
how I define you.
yeah.
Okay. Do you identify your life with all of your medical background?
I don't anymore, no. I would
Good.
say, like,
That's what I hope you say.
my initial thought when you ask me who I am is that I'm just full of life now. And when I think about, like, saying, "Oh, I am who I am now," I compare that mostly to my past and how I wasn't full of life, but I knew that deep down I was supposed to be, like, there was supposed to be this, like, energy flowing out of me that was just kind of blocked inside of me. So I would say now I'm much more myself because I'm able to let this energy of life kind of flow out of me and bleed onto other people, hopefully.
And that's exactly what Sandy Gaskins, who was on episode 6 of Beyond the Summit, what she said about you when we
Oh, really?
talked. So that's wonderful
Yeah.
that you're recognizing that that's how other people recognize you as well. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
In previous episode, I talked with Todd Scandrett. I mentioned him earlier. Is the founder and president of Resurgence PPG, where we get adaptive veterans, all who have PTSD. We get them their training, their lodging, their travel, and their food during training, all paid for. And I've mentioned this before that when I've gone to watch some of them do their training and I sit and I talk with them after hours, we talk about their flying. They all say something similar, which is when I'm up there, I totally even forget that I have PTSD. So, paramotoring came into your life. We'll talk briefly about that here, where we can talk about it now. When you're up there, is it similar for you that you even forget all of the crap that your body has had to endure?
Yes, absolutely. I say that I always tell people who ask me why I love loving or why I love flying, it's because it's like my form of therapy. Like I just get to go up there and be up there and not think about everything that I'm dealing with down on the ground. You have to be fully immersed in the flying, whether it be, just flying the glider and the motor, but also like being immersed in the landscape around you and the nature that you're flying amongst. So absolutely, I just kind of step away from life on the ground when I'm up in the air, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah. I'll tell you this being on the ground, watching you be on the ground, helping other people make their dreams come true. And I remember from that video, a gentleman landing and just freaking out. And you're just freaking out because he made such a good flight and such a good landing. I
Mhm.
mean, how much life and energy does that give you when you get to help someone see their dreams and help them to live out their dreams?
Yeah, so much. I love first flight day is it's always a little, scary, but also, like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting, and anytime someone lands from their first flight, I feel like I just landed from my own first flight and get, like, the same kind of butterflies and rush of adrenaline, and it's so fun to kind of experience that with someone experiencing it for the first time. So I absolutely love teaching people how to fly and, um just feeling their energy that they like, everyone's like a new person when they land from their first flight, and they just, like, emit this, beautiful energy off them when they land, and I love to experience that.
Yeah. Because you enjoy this so much, it may be hard to look 5 years, 10 years down the road, but where do you see your life in
Mhm.
5 to 10 years down the road? Do you still think you'll be at this school teaching? Have you thought about, "Man, I'd love to open up my own operation one day," or do something completely different? Where do you see yourself?
Um, I don't know at the moment. So, I know right now I love instructing at Aviator, um, and from everything that I've been through, it's so nice having, like, a stable position right now, like being in a stable spot, loving the thing I'm doing, and being happy. But I do think down the road, I don't want to be in Florida forever because I'm not the biggest Florida fan. It's very flat and hot. um, and I don't know. I also have to think about the fact that I do have this disease and I need like good health insurance to continue being able to get all my treatments. So I have to think about that a little bit, but right now I'm happy where I am. I definitely don't think I'll be here forever, and I don't know what that necessarily means yet. I have a lot of different hobbies, and passions I could see myself potentially pursuing down the road, but for right now, I'm very happy where I am.
Outside of flying, what are your hobbies that you enjoy the most?
I really enjoy photography a lot. So if I were to pursue something else, I could see myself potentially pursuing that. Um, and obviously, I love traveling, so having some sort of job that could allow me to travel full time would be amazing. Um, I would say mostly, I'm trying to think other hobbies. I really love playing guitar and I love to read and write. So I could see myself doing something with writing, maybe. Um, but yeah, we'll see.
Nice. Alright,
Hmm.
last question for you, and then you're done. You made it through. Last question is this: you could go I want you to take a moment. I want you to talk to a 9-year-old child
Hmm.
and her parents or his parents, whether it's with Crohn's disease or another debilitating disease or challenge in their life. What words of hope and inspiration do you give them?
Thinking about talking to my younger self was probably easy because I could just say, everything's going to be okay. Like, I know you're going to have to endure all this pain and all this struggle, but at the end of the day, you're gonna make it through it and you're gonna be okay and you're gonna be better than you can ever imagine. Um, Talking to a little kid where you don't know what they're gonna experience and what their, kind of end story is gonna be. Um, I would just tell that child to not lose hope as hard as they could, just not to lose um, the feeling that one day they're gonna be okay. Um, and as best as they could, try to keep people and things in their life that fill them with joy. So even though you're dealing with this major disease or, this whatever you're going through, try to find through that what you love and what brings you joy and continue to pursue those things. Even if they're little, even if it's something like playing an instrument or, you know, coloring, like coloring books or reading or something. Find little things that you can do throughout your day that bring you joy and keep you yourself because you need those things to not let what you're going through overshine. who you are on your own apart from what you're going through would be my main advice.
That's awesome. Jillian, when I'm recording a podcast with someone, I don't know what I'm going to title the podcast, and then something sparks by what my guest says, and I'm like, "That's it right there." And so the title of this will be "Never Lose Hope." I
That's
love it.
awesome.
I
Yeah,
love it, I
that's
love it, I
awesome.
love it. So I wanna thank you for being my guest today and putting hope into people's lives when they feel like they don't have any hope to look forward to or any faith that they can keep because of such a challenge in their lives. You are living proof that you can move past that, that you can keep going, that you never lose hope, and there's better days ahead. So, thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you for being a success. Thank you for climbing a mountain, getting to the top, because I'm sure you felt like at times now, I've climbed this mountain. I've gotten to the top of this summit, and now I'm
Mhm,
looking where? Beyond the summit, to the next
mhm.
summit, and the next summit, and the
Yeah.
next summit. So I thank you so much for not just inspiring all of the listeners out there, but as I told you earlier, thank you for inspiring me, even though when you didn't even know who I was, but you
Yeah.
inspired me to do this and hopefully reach a lot more people and just keep that trickling effect going. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I also want to thank all of our listeners out there who continue to listen week in, week out. And if you ever want to reach out to Jillian and get some paramotoring training, you can do that at Aviator PPG. So thank you,
Mhm.
Jillian.
Thank you so much for having me.